Good morning. My name is Marie Conley, and thank you for being here today to celebrate Rare Disease Day in Pennsylvania and to announce Pennsylvania Bio's Rare Disease Caucus. Before we begin, please help me recognize the amazing talents of Michael Smedley, who hails from Bucks County. He and his brother suffer from Leber's congenital amaurosis, which has caused them to lose their sight at a young age. Michael is a sophomore at Council Rock High South and is on student council and runs track. Thank you, Michael, for being such a great example of strength and courage. I'm so honored to be here today. Since 1994, starting with Governor Tom Ridge, I have witnessed and organized many events in this rotunda. Today I stand before you as a patient advocate. After 3 years and more than 7 specialists, I was finally diagnosed at the University of Pennsylvania with Cushing's disease. Between 2 and 10 people per million are diagnosed with this disease. I have had a brain surgery, my adrenal glands removed, a lower lobe right lung resection, more than 22 visits to the ER, and several hospital stays since June of 12. Like most rare disease, it is very isolating and lonely. There are not many 5K races or telethons for ASH. Gosh, most people can't even pronounce our diseases. Oftentimes, we may not look sick from the outside, but every minute of every day, our insides remind us that we are. As a patient, I am grateful for the National Organization of Rare Diseases and their advocacy to support patients like me and our families and caregivers. This is one of the many reasons why today an event is so important. It is a privilege to introduce another patient advocate and one of the chairs of our planning committee, Kyle Brandt.
All right, thanks so much. I'm here because when I was diagnosed with Friedreich's ataxia, my parents and we thought we were the only ones in the world who knew the words Friedreich's ataxia. We found out that it would only be a matter of time before I'm in a wheelchair. It would only be a matter of time before I lose all ability to take care of myself. And it would only be a matter of time before my heart fails. I suffer a premature death. We felt helpless. This is an experience that I share with many other rare disease families. But once we met others in the community, we had a glimmer of hope. And we began to move forward. We truly started to understand the Rare Disease Day mantra. Alone we are rare, together we are strong. The contrast I feel between the day I was diagnosed and now is truly amazing, and I'm grateful to be I'm grateful to be here in front of you with so much support behind us. Internationally, Rare Disease Day was recognized on February 29th, the rarest day of the year. There were more than 30 other events around the country at state houses, just like this one. This represented the unity of the rare disease community and the support of the lawmakers. In Pennsylvania, the recognition of Rare Disease Day was marked by a proclamation, a recognition in the Senate by Senator Costa, who is here with us. Thank you very much for that. And also a proclamation from Governor Wolf, which we have right here. We're very grateful for his support. I also, before I hand it back to Marie, I wanted to recognize the person that has brought all this together, all the different aspects and answered emails and herded cats to get all of us here. And that's Ann Mushino. Thank you very much, Ann. And I want to thank Marie for her obvious passion and her experience as we planned this event, and for serving as our MC today. Thank you, Marie. Back to you.
Thank you, Kyle. It is now my pleasure to introduce our two coordinators of the Rare Disease Caucus. Pennsylvania Bio has been instrumental in providing support and guidance to this invaluable committee. Please help me welcome Senator Andy Dinniman from Chester County and Representative Marcy Toepel from Montgomery County. They will share brief remarks with us about this new caucus. We know how hectic their schedule is today, so you and your colleagues, we understand that it's not rude. You can just leave afterwards. So thank you again so much for being here. Senator Dinniman.
You know, in the Bible we read that he who saves one person, it is as if he saved the world. And so today, as we gather here and in other state houses, we understand that each and every person is of importance. And we want to make sure that every single individual has an opportunity to achieve and has the longest life expectancy and the greatest quality of life, don't we? That's why we're here today. And what I've seen, and one of the reasons I've been in the leadership of this, is for several reasons. One, I've seen the results and the difficulties that families go through. You know, if you have cancer, the American Cancer Society is there before you know it. If you have heart disease, someone will show up from the Heart Association. But if you have any of these tens and tons of rare diseases, you're so right, that are even hard to pronounce, it is a scary thing to hear about, and no one necessarily shows up, do they? And there are not the millions of dollars that are given for research. Well, I'm happy that you've come together with the various rare diseases, that you're now going to advocate for each and every one, that you're going to make sure that legislatures and the federal and the state government support the rare diseases give it as much support as others more prominent diseases. Because remember that every single individual is important. And I want to thank our friends in the bio industry, because our district is the center of that industry. And sometimes when we talk about biosciences and biopharma, we talk only in economic development terms. But understand what motivates many of those in this industry and in the various groups that work with that industry. And that is the human spirit that tells us that through knowledge we can solve problems, we can end these diseases, we can make a better quality of life for everyone, right? So in putting all this together, what I want you to understand is you have a lot of friends here in Pennsylvania, and they're all standing here. And we together in the Senate and the House are going to make sure that each and every rare disease is known, and that we come together to try to give that support to solving it. Because let me end as I started. We know that if we save one person, it is as if we have saved the world, right? Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Marcy Toepel from Montgomery County, and I want to thank the patient advocates, the National Organization of Rare Diseases, and those families that are here today directly affected by a loved one diagnosed with a rare disease. Last January, my mother died of adrenal cancer. This disease is very rare, and it's hard to determine the number of diagnosed cases, but the American Cancer Society estimates only about 200 per year. Her diagnosis and the subsequent surgery did not halt the spread of the cancer. Throughout her journey, we as a family were thrust into a medical maze that is very difficult to navigate. Unfortunately, my mother's case is not unique, even though her cancer may have been. Families are often left to blindly feel their way through tests, referrals, decisions about treatment and care without a clue about the questions to ask or a support system to assist them in making those decisions, compounded by the financial and emotional challenges that they face. Today, Joe Coyne from my district is here. Joe, you want to give a raise? He's very shy, but he's here to show support for this newly formed caucus and the need to better share information for those who do not have a choice, but are thrust into this new world they have to deal with. Joe's son Garrett was diagnosed with an extremely rare disease, Batten disease. It affects only 2 to 4 of every 100,000 children born. It's hard to find answers when a disease is so limited in scope. Unfortunately, research is often concentrated on more widely diagnosed diseases, but despite these obstacles, Joe has been proactive in seeking answers to the prevention, treatment, and eradication of this disease. He's traveled all over the East Coast, met with researchers, parents, doctors, and nonprofits, even helping to form a Batten disease nonprofit to raise funds to fight for a cure. Finally, he turned to us to help and investigate the formation of a database to share information on patients battling rare diseases like Garrett. I'm pleased to work with Joe on tangible ways that our state government can make a real difference in the battle against Batten disease and other rare diseases. Today, Pennsylvania is taking an important step forward in recognizing those fighting rare diseases, and I'm pleased to join them in their fight. I'm working on a bill to implement a statewide database fueled by information transferred from hospitals to the PA Healthcare Cost Containment Council. This data exists. We just need to house it in one place where it can be accessed by those involved in the research and development of treatment protocols, sharing of information, and identifying and researching patients diagnosed with a rare disease. Pennsylvania can be a leader in this area, and I'm pleased to be part of the facilitation of a powerful tool in this fight. I look forward to working with all the stakeholder groups in getting this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we let you go to do the business of the people, we just wanted to thank again, this caucus is still growing, but we wanted to recognize the other members, Senator Lisa Boscola, Senator Shirley Kitchen, Senator Sean Wiley, Senator Michelle Brooks, Senator Tammy Tomlinson, Senator Jean Yaw, Representative Toepel, Representative Longjetti, Representative McCarter, Representative Millen, Representative Camp, Representative Ward, Representative Hill, Representative Culver, Representative Costa, Representative Suni, and Representative Mert. In addition, we're so grateful for Senator Bartolato, who is now joining our caucus. Who else wants to join? Come on, come on. We have Senator Patafana is going to join. There we go. Senator Wozniak. This is like an auction. Let's go, let's go. Who wants to? And I don't know. Who? Representative Schreiber. Dean. Representative Dean. This is awesome. Thank you, guys. Now I know, do you guys need to go? Okay, great. We'll keep going. It's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. You'll understand he's quite a slacker. Dr. David Fagerbaum is the Assistant Professor of Medicine at U of Penn, Associate Director of the Penn Orphan Disease Center, Executive Director of the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network, and especially here today, he's a patient battling Castleman's disease. David's work has resulted in a paradigm shift in how CD is researched and treated. He is in the longest remission ever on a drug that he identified through his research, and he is now working to expand his collaborative network and approach to rare diseases. David, it's a pleasure to see you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Marie, and I want to thank Kyle. It's such an honor to be able to share the stage with someone like him who's such a true hero. So just as Marie shared, I'm a physician at the University of Pennsylvania. I research Castleman disease, and I'm also a patient battling this same disease. I came to the University of Pennsylvania for med school with the dream of becoming a clinical oncologist, treating patients like my mom battling cancer, and my mom eventually died from the disease. While I was at Penn studying to become an oncologist myself, I began to have fatigue, nausea, vomiting, symptoms that turned out to eventually cause me to be hospitalized at the University of Pennsylvania. I spent 4.5 months hospitalized over a 6-month period, even had my last rites read to me in November of 2010 as this disease, Castleman disease, began to attack my organs and shut them down. As you can see, I survived 3 life-threatening episodes, and I was able to return to the University of Pennsylvania for medical school. And I trusted that the medical system would be able to figure out that treatment that could save my life and to keep me alive. When I relapsed 15 months later, I realized that I couldn't just wait for the medical system to figure it out. I couldn't wait for physicians and researchers to figure out Castleman disease, and that I'd need to dedicate the rest of my life to trying to identify a cure and treatments for my disease. And so I started doing that 3.5 years ago, and as Marie shared, I'm thrilled and pleased to share that a drug that I identified from research at the University of Pennsylvania, which is approved for kidney transplantation, I began a trial of myself as the only patient with Castleman disease on this drug, and March 5th marked 26 months since my last relapse, which is the longest ever for me. Longest ever for me by 9 months. And in parallel to doing this research, I also established what's called the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network to overcome many of the hurdles in rare disease research. I hope that this finding that I had for myself and in treating me for Castleman disease with a drug approved for another disease is a model that could be effective for many other rare diseases. There are so many drugs already approved that are safe and that could be effective for rare disease patients. So I hope that we can use this as an example to identify drugs that could help many other rare diseases. And I hope that the model that we've built through the Castleman Disease Collaborative Network can also be a model that many other rare diseases can take of building a global network, prioritizing research, and driving forward an agenda. I spend my entire life thinking about rare disease research, Castleman disease. This is all I care about in the world. So please, I hope any of you will reach out to me if there's ever any way that I can be involved to help with your rare disease or rare disease in general. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, David. There are many cogs in the wheel of healing and advocacy for these rare diseases. Roughly 1.6 million people in Pennsylvania alone, and 2/3 of these patients are children. One of my dearest friend's daughters was just diagnosed with POTS, a rare disease that has changed the life of Carly, who is a freshman in high school and with us here today. Carly and Lisa are here today, and Carly has taken already to YouTube to share her stories with others. Her strength has been an inspiration. Our next speaker is a champion for moms and dads like Carly and Michaels and all of you here. It's an honor to introduce to you Jody Vento. Jody is a certified genetic counselor and the manager of the Center of Rare Disease Therapy from the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh of UPMC.
Thank you. Well, good morning, and thank you for inviting me to say a few words today. As Marie mentioned, I'm a genetic counselor by training, and I've worked in the pediatric setting my whole career. And I don't think I see any conditions in my practice that are considered common. And so I feel like I'm really in the business of the rare. So I've worked with many families with rare and ultra-rare conditions, and I've seen the struggles that unite them. When I was asked to become the manager of the Center for Rare Disease Therapy at the Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh of UPMC, I was thrilled to become involved with such a forward-thinking program. The Center for Rare Disease Therapy was developed to bring together experts, novel therapies, and patients, and to do better for them. As was said this morning, there's many hospitals have heart centers and cancer centers, centers that focus on groups of diseases that affect many patients. The Center for Rare Disease Therapy is different because the number of individuals with any given condition may be very small. But there are some uniting themes among rare conditions that are important. Children who have a rare disease and their families are often facing an uphill battle. They're dealing with a rare condition that other family members may have never heard of, may not even be able to pronounce. And oftentimes when they go to see a pediatrician, the pediatrician has to look up their condition in a book because it's not something they're familiar with in their practice. So as a result, many families have to travel great distances to find experts who can care for them. A collaborative, innovative, multidisciplinary approach is essential to the care of a child or an adult with rare disease. The Center for Rare Disease Therapy brings together a team of healthcare professionals, researchers, and collaborators that share a commitment to advancing the treatment of rare diseases. We are dedicated to providing the best possible care for children and their families by developing standards of care and, in places where they don't exist, pioneering new therapies. Using the lessons we've learned from one disease, we can think about treatments that are outside of a box for another disease, much as you've mentioned. So I want to tell you a quick story. So a year and a half ago, a little girl named Kennedy came to our center. She was referred by our collaborators and colleagues at the Clinic for Special Children in Strasburg, PA. Kennedy has an ultra-rare, life-threatening metabolic condition. And the one expert in her disease had retired from medical practice. So her family was searching everywhere for someone to care for her and to try to find a treatment. So our team worked with the experts in Kennedy's condition and with her physician at the Clinic for Special Children. And we tried to come up with a new plan. And based on our experience with liver transplantation to treat other metabolic conditions, it was determined that this might be an approach for her. So after careful consideration with her family, our team performed a liver transplant. Since that time, Kennedy's metabolic levels have normalized, and she's continued to make really great positive developmental gains. We want more stories like this. So today, I want to thank everyone for your interest and to remind legislators, patients, families, advocates, and industry partners that we share your focus on rare disease. This is important work, and days like today help to remind everybody in the rare disease community that you are not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Our next speaker is an example of perseverance and tenacity. Abby Yingling from Harrisburg is more than a patient advocate. She is a shining example of what the future of Pennsylvania looks like. It's my pleasure to introduce Abby.
When I was diagnosed at 16, I had no idea what Friedreich's ataxia was. All I knew was that it would rob me of my ability to walk. It would give me heart disease, along with scoliosis, and my speech would be slurred. It is extremely rare, genetic, and progressive, and there is no known treatment or cure. I was told I was going to die before I turned 30, and there is nothing I can do. Entering my freshman year of college was the hardest thing I've ever done. My walking was becoming more impacted, and I hid in my dorm room all the time. I had a few friends, but I extremely limited myself. I also had no clue what I wanted to do and didn't care about my schoolwork. I wanted to give up and move back home, but my parents told me to stick with it and that it would get better. The summer before my sophomore year of college, the time came for me to get a scooter. I was scared it would close my world, but it only opened and became so much larger. At the end of my sophomore year, I became involved with student government and got a job in the bookstore on campus. My junior year started with an internship in Representative Kevin Schreiber's district office for a semester, and I am currently working on an independent study with the Director of Disability Support Services on campus. Along with Student Senate, it has been a crazy year, but I wouldn't change a thing. I can't wait to see what the future brings. All I know is that my passion lies within advocacy, so I can use my voice to speak for those who cannot. I was scared of my diagnosis. I was scared people would see my scooter as a disability before they saw me. But I have made so many friends who see me for me and then ask for a ride. And my rare disease story is similar to the millions of people living with one worldwide. Being rare can be an isolating experience until we gather the courage to speak out and connect. I want to thank and acknowledge the lawmakers who are a part of our Rare Disease Caucus. It is with your support that we can be here today to have our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. A theme you've continued to hear from many of our speakers today was a feeling of isolation. Our next speaker and his organization allow us and our families who live with rare diseases and feel like we are a small whisper in the world of healthcare advocacy have a loud and clear voice. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me introduce Tim Boyd, Associate Director of State Policy for the National Organization of Rare Diseases.
Hi, everyone, and on behalf of NORD and our members, thank you for being here today, and thank you for having me to speak briefly. And I do want to take a moment. The theme of Rare Disease Day worldwide this year is the patient voice, and we've had so many great speakers, but I also want to acknowledge all the great families and supporters who came out to see this event and participate in this event. Without you, this really wouldn't have any meaning or really be possible, so thank you, and give yourselves a round of applause. I have been at NORD now for a year, and actually this event marks the anniversary of my time at NORD. This is the Pennsylvania Rare Disease Day event last year was the first thing I did in rare diseases, and so I kind of always have a special place in my heart. But as I've been around, I've been to many of our events, and I think it's very fitting that this event closes out our season of rare disease events. And I know back at NORD at our home offices in Connecticut, they like to talk a lot about the Massachusetts event as kind of the shining star, or one of the shining stars of our Rare Disease Day actions. But given what the number of people out here today and the great program, I'm going to go back there and tell them about Pennsylvania and the great job you guys are doing here and the great awareness you're building, so thank you. And finally, I would be remiss as an Associate Director of State Policy to not talk a little bit of policy. One of the great things that came out of the event last year was a bill sponsored by Senator Bob Mensch, which at that time it was just an idea, which was the idea of capping cost sharing for patients with rare diseases and other complex chronic conditions. And so right now in the Insurance and Banking Committee, there was a piece of legislation, SB 841, which would establish limitations on how much patients are required to pay in cost sharing to pick up their prescription drug each month. We know, or the scientific evidence is incredibly clear, that any increase in a burden of cost sharing on patients makes it more difficult for them to stay adherent to their treatment plan, and ultimately could force them to make decisions between staying on treatment, getting the care they need, and paying for other things they need in their daily life. So this bill would go a long way towards helping patients with rare disease and other complex disorders, and I encourage the new caucus we have here to support it, and I encourage all of you to support it. If you have any questions about it, please feel free to find me afterward. So thank you again, and happy Rare Disease Day.
Thank you, Tim. It's an honor to introduce our next speaker. Earlier, I referred to the many cogs in the wheel that make advocacy for rare disease a success. Chuck Monahan is one of the reasons the wheels keep moving. In 1996, he helped create the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation based in Pittsburgh. He has been the driving force behind the foundation and has helped many families cope with the crisis of mitochondrial disease. In 2006, he was named the CEO of the foundation. Please help me welcome him.
Thank you. This isn't my first time talking at the Rotunda in Harrisburg. For years, we manned the office for the Pennsylvania Restaurant Association at 100 State Street, which I had the opportunity to be the president of. So we spent a lot of time here and working my 80 hours a week, traveling back and forth to our office from Pittsburgh to Harrisburg. Once I got a phone call from my wife who said, you know, you better come home, our daughter is sick. That started a completely different direction for my life. No longer involved in lobbying for legislation impacting the restaurant business, but now lobbying for legislation and creating and casting a large net of awareness across the spectrum of rare disorders, specifically mitochondrial disease. You see, we were told our daughter Gina was suffering from a seizure disorder of idiopathic origin. Idiopathic origin means the doctors did not know what was going on. It's a very polite and professional word for dumb. We were giving her over 20 anticonvulsants and pills a day through a G-tube attached to her stomach. So after traveling the country, searching for doctors who could diagnose and treat our daughter, we returned home only to be given a diagnosis of a mitochondrial disease called MELAS, mitochondrial encephalopathy, lactic acidosis, and stroke-like syndrome. Say it very quickly 3 times in a row. Gina was 15 when we got the diagnosis. She died 8 months later at the age of 15. After 4 years searching for a diagnosis, after making the honor roll in 7th grade, after 8 months of getting that diagnosis at the age of 15, not able to complete her 8th grade year. So mitochondrial disease is not a single disease. We've identified over 250 mitochondrial diseases. Because mitochondrial disease and dysfunction has multi-systemic involvement and impact, it cross-pollinates and impacts many of the 7,000 rare diseases identified by the National Organization of Rare Disorders. The onset and affordability of genomic sequencing has enabled us to better identify many rare diseases and begin treatment regimens earlier than ever before. However, this diagnosis of genomic sequencing now enables us to produce more data than we actually have the ability to interpret. So there's still a learning curve, even when technology is increasing at such a great rate. Ladies and gentlemen, there's an estimated 30 million people in the United States. That's 1 in 10 Americans, or 10% of the US population, along with 30 million Europeans living with rare disease. That's not rare. And with an estimated 350 million people worldwide suffering from rare diseases, demanding that we reframe the way we look, the way we define, and the way we treat the rare disease community is now a necessity. 10,000 newly identified compounds will be narrowed down to 250 in 6.5 years. Those 250 via preclinical investigations will be narrowed down to 5 in another 6 years. And then because of FDA review process, those 5 will be narrowed down to 1 drug being approved for manufacturing and use. So, and that is not an inference that the process is not necessary, but only that the results of the process and the fact that from drug discovery to developing new medicine takes 14 years and $2 billion to develop, with a failure rate exceeding 95%, is not meeting the needs of the rare disease community. Something has to be done. Dr. William Gall, who's the clinical director of the National Human Genome Research Institute, who leads the NIH Undiagnosed Disease Program, said, "What occurs in less than 0.1% of the population, but yet is found in one form or another in almost every family in the world. A rare genetic disease." The study of rare genetic diseases is very important, Dr. Gall says. Rare diseases usually occur when 2 people who don't know they carry a mutation in the same gene have a child. There's no practical way to find out who has such mutations beforehand. People with rare genetic diseases, Dr. Gall says, are often overlooked or forgotten, but we gain a great deal from studying their disorders. Their contributions to medical science are pure gold. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to see my state of Pennsylvania taking some initial steps, focusing on the needs as well as the value of rare disease. The formation of this Rare Disease Caucus is a gigantic step forward. We have over 60,000 members in our database representing every state in the United States and 152 countries. And you know what? I have the honor and the privilege of thanking you for all of them. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope the diversity of our speakers today have shown you that collaboration is necessary to advocate for those with rare diseases. Our last speaker is a great example of different companies that come together to support our efforts. Carla Becker-White is the Senior Manager of State Government Relations, State Government Affairs at CSL Behring. CSL Behring develops and delivers biotherapies to treat the life-threatening medical conditions, particularly those with rare and genetic diseases. Carla?
Thank you so much, and I just feel so inadequate after all of these wonderful speakers. But we are greatly appreciative at CSL Behring, and we are humbled to be part of this event today and to be here to support these phenomenal advocates and members of the rare disease community in Pennsylvania. Our U.S. corporate offices are in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, and we're very proud of the state to be forming this caucus and drawing attention to the needs of patients with rare diseases. At CSL Behring, we're dedicated to serving patients with rare, serious conditions like hemophilia and primary immune deficiency disorders. But as we work with our patients, we see and witness the struggle they have and their caretakers go through as they struggle for diagnosis, to find specialists, and to access the care they need once they have those specialists and the diagnosis that they so need. When we look at this journey and we hear the stories of the patients here today, we see such strength and determination. But we as a company also hear a call to do more. And we have so many great assets here in Pennsylvania that we can bring together and that this caucus can focus on, from world-class researchers that we've heard from and world-class academic centers, companies, patient groups, and associations like Pennsylvania Bio that help bring all of these assets together to focus on solutions and finding a path forward for the patients we're talking about today. When we bring all that together and team up with legislators as part of a rare disease caucus, I have no doubt that we will find those solutions. We thank NORD for its leadership in focusing on building this community, and we look forward to working with the caucus and the patient groups here in Pennsylvania to bring solutions and bring that reality of cures and treatments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On behalf of all of the members of the Pennsylvania Rare Disease Planning Committee, especially Ann and Kyle, and everyone in the audience who is an outstanding example of strength, who just happens to have a rare disease, and all of the members and caregivers, thank you so much for being here today. We would like to extend another special thank you to all of our legislators who are part of the Rare Disease Caucus and all the legislators who stopped by to show their support. I'd also like to thank Craig Tucker, who's the Vice President for Government Affairs for Pennsylvania Bio, who provided counsel and guidance to our committee and will continue to work closely with us for the Rare Disease Caucus. And most especially want to thank everyone that's here today. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you next year. If I could ask, as we conclude the program, any member that's here representing a rare disease or has a rare disease or family members, we wanted to get one large group photo up here, and our speakers, of course. Thank you. Have a great day.